Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1 on this here channel, and if it's your birthday, I want to wish you a happy birthday. Now that we've gotten the pleasantries out of the way, let's start talking about stuff, which is what we do here on ETCG1. And today I'd like to talk about the Environment and You, which is sort of a spin-off of the Dieselgate video that I did not long ago. There's a lot of comments there. I want the opportunity to respond to some of those comments. First, a point of clarification as far as Dieselgate and my position on it. The difference between what Volkswagen did with their emissions, and for those of you not familiar, I'll briefly recap. There'll also be a link in the description to the previous video that I just mentioned along with other stuff, so please check there, was that Volkswagen had, in order to pass emissions test, programmed into their computers something that would recognize when it was being tested for emissions and suddenly alter its output so that its emissions were lowered. And then when you drove back down the road, it all went back to normal operation, and that was that. The difference between this and, say, what General Motors did with their ignition switches or Chrysler did with their Jeep Grand Cherokees and such is that it shows intent. Now, General Motors and Chrysler, they were negligent in what they did. But what Volkswagen did was they said, we can only make this work if we cheat. So they knowingly went in and did what they did. And, you know, a dangerous game, because I can't see how they couldn't think somebody would figure it out somewhere down the line, and they did. And this may go out to other car makers. Speaking of which, a lot of you brought this up, you know, this calls into question the entire emissions testing philosophy, because if Volkswagen can do it, why can't other car companies do it? Have other car companies done it as well? I'm sure there's lots of eyeballs on a lot of people trying to make sure that they've done what they've done. So the difference in my eyes between what Volkswagen did and what GM, Chrysler, and everybody else has done in the past is it shows intent. Now, my response to this is, okay, you're a Volkswagen engineer. Your bosses, so to speak, have told you, all right, we're going to start marketing something we call, we want to get diesels back into the American market. Remember in the last video I said that it's diesel automobiles account for like 1% of vehicle sales in the United States. Most of the diesels that we use are in trucks. We like our trucks. Diesels in cars, not so much. We talked about that in the last video, why that might not have been. Anyway, Volkswagen comes in, they say, we want to market some of our diesels. We've been selling them all over Europe, great. But we want to market some of our diesels in the US. So let's come up with a clean diesel technology. Let's make a diesel more like a gasoline engine. Let's give them everything they want. And the engineers are like, okay, well, we need to do this, this, and this. And maybe management came back and said something like, well, you don't have money to do that. It's going to cost too much to put that into production. It's not going to work out. And the engineers are like, okay, well, we can't defy the laws of physics. What do you want us to do? Do the only option available, apparently, which was basically cheat. Now let's talk about the ramifications of that, environmentally speaking, because that's what this video is titled about. I want to talk about the environment a bit. And the effect that this may have had on the environment, I don't think it can be measured. Ultimately, I think that the emissions testing system, the EPA, is flawed in their ability to monitor and regulate emissions. Because as we can see by this latest thing that's happened with Volkswagen, I think it's just a game. And the reason why I say this is because the testing and the way it's set up is not really real world conditions. It's supposed to mimic real world conditions, but it's not real world conditions. I believe what they used to use was called the California drive cycle. I believe that this was what they used for the emission monitors and things like that that's in your vehicle. And basically what it does is it goes over a variety of speeds and how the vehicle is performing, and it's supposed to simulate a variety of driving conditions and then measure the emissions accordingly, and if they fit within a certain parameter, great. But once again, that's not the real world. The real world doesn't fall into a prescription. The real world is all over the place. So this is what I foresee possibly coming down the pike as a result of this thing with Dieselgate. They'll take a good, long, hard look at their emissions testing and say, we got to find a different way. And we might see something like that. The technology is there to like monitor emissions as you're getting on the on-ramp of the highway, as you're doing other things. And you can get a ticket just with a picture of your license plate, same as they do some speeding tickets and things like that with speed cameras and such. And they can do the same thing for emissions. And I'm kind of seeing that they might use this as a vehicle to do just that, because they're after cleaner air. Yeah, I get it. Where does this leave us? Well, as I mentioned in the other video, I think long term, as I said about the Volkswagen engineers earlier, there's only so much that we can do, and I think we've pretty much reached the limits of what we can do with internal combustion, both with diesel and gasoline. I think both of those things have sort of reached their pinnacle of efficiency, about as far as they can take these things and still keep relatively decent emissions and relatively decent power delivery and all that. So there's not much further for them to go. We've seen the proliferation of hybrids in recent years. I've done videos about that. And I think that is a measure to try to move us into the next phase of vehicles that we'll use. Something to be considered here. There are emerging markets, namely China and India. A growing middle class that all wants to drive vehicles. They waited all their lives, they worked really hard, and they saved up, and they're buying vehicles for the first time. And a lot of vehicles in these places. Therefore, there's a lot more potential for emissions to get into the atmosphere from these vehicles. So more of them on the road, the more stuff goes in the air. It's just numbers. It's just how it is. So there's not going to be less people driving. If anything, there's going to be more people driving in the future. If we don't do something, if we don't start addressing the issues now, well, then maybe down the road it will be 10 times worse. This is the whole reason the EPA existed to begin with. That's their stated purpose anyway. And if the efficiency of the internal combustion engine has reached its peak, also it runs on a natural resource, which is finite. There's only so much of it around, and the more people that use it, the less of it there will be, and the price of it will go up, and da-da-da-da-da. Moving towards the next phase in vehicular evolution. What is that? Well, as I alluded to in the last video about the song Red Barchetta, where they were saying something to the effect of before the motor law. And that sort of sticks with me. I wonder if it will reach a point where internal combustion engines are outlawed entirely, and you won't be able to use them except for having special permits and special days and those kinds of things because air quality is so poor. All in an effort to save our skin. It's a lot to think about. You know, I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow, but I'm looking at the next 50 years. And that will probably complete my lifespan for sure. But, you know, for those of you coming into the world now, you're going to be faced with a very different world, I think, in 50 years, and who knows what that will be. That's my concern, and that's what I was alluding to before, that the internal combustion engine may be on its way out. And that's what I was saying, that's what I was trying to say when I said, this may be the time, this may be the best time for the internal combustion engine, this may be where it peaked. And then from here on down is where it goes down. And it's things like Dieselgate that I think are going to make that happen. It gives environmentalists a target, something to shoot for, something to say, this is why we need to do this, because no matter what, the car companies can't be trusted to do it themselves. We need to go in and take over. I don't like it any more than you do. But let's talk about the environment for just a little bit. And I'm just going to give my take on it. It may be controversial, what have you. It used to be called global warming. Now it's called climate change. The Earth has gone through several climate change events throughout its history. In fact, an interesting fact would be that all of the mass extinction that's happened on this planet, which has happened, I think 3 times in the past, including the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs were one, but then there was a Cretaceous period, and I believe there was another period of time where there was a mass extinction event. All of those things coincided with an extreme climate change. So a huge swing in climate. Before human beings were even here, Earth has been here approximately 4.5 billion years, about the age of the solar system. We're the slag left over from the sun. It's kind of fun to think about it that way, but that's what we are. We're the slag that's left over. Now, if you're a creationist, I don't mean to offend you, but I'm talking in terms of science, or known science as we have it now. That being said, nothing that is on this planet that we're putting into the atmosphere, into the water, or wherever wasn't here to begin with. We've altered it, we've changed it, we've done these things, but it's all stuff that was here before. Now, climate change, as I said, coincides with mass extinction events. Climate change, I don't believe affects the Earth one bit. The Earth is the Earth. The Earth has been here, as I said, 4.5 billion years. At best, human beings, 2 million years. Blink of an eye. It's literally nothing in the grand scheme, the grand scope of things. So the Earth, we're renting. we're just the current tenants. But as far as the Earth is concerned, she's an old girl. She's been around a while, and she's seen species come and go. Now, whether we're here or not, I don't think it cares one bit. But it does matter to us as human beings if we want to continue on, if we want to have a legacy on this planet. I think we should consider our effect on the environment. And I have a practical for you for this. My shop. Let's picture my shop as the planet. Now, I'm going to do this. This bag of garbage, or this tub of garbage here, was in the shop. It's part of my environment. Now, if I take this garbage and dump it out, now I haven't made anything new here other than a mess. This was already existing in my shop, in my environment, but I changed it, I altered it. I came and I dumped it on the floor. I took an active role in changing my environment by dumping the garbage on the floor. And this is the point that I'm trying to make. The Earth, as I stated, has gone through different climate phases. It has gone through a tremendous change since the Industrial Revolution about 100 or so years ago. The climate has warmed up dramatically. Now, whether or not that's part of a natural cycle or human beings have had an effect, I err on the side that human beings have had an effect. Why? Because of what I just showed you there. Yes, that stuff was already here, but I dumped it on the floor. I had an effect on my environment. That's my point. My point is that we have an effect with our environment. There is a cause and effect to the things we do. We can't just dump garbage on the floor of the shop and not expect to trip over it, or have it get in the way, or have it cause a problem. Or in some cases, if I had toxic garbage to dump out here, to not have it be harmful to me. It may not be harmful to the planet per se, because the planet, like I said, has, as far as life forms, they've come and gone on the planet, but the planet is still here. So what I'm saying is, I think we need to pay attention to what we're doing to our environment, and we can't ignore it. We can't just sit there and say, ah, it's getting warmer, so what? Or the climate is changing. You know, talk to the people out west that have wildfires that are, you know, more than they've ever had, or the flooding in the east because of the hurricane that nearly missed us. If that thing would have hit us, So extreme climate or extreme weather events or wildfires or all that stuff, not being the result of man-made interaction with the environment, I have a hard time thinking of it that way. I think that man has had a hand in the altering of the climate of this planet. Now, whether or not it's too late to do something to keep it hospitable for us, I don't know. I try to do my part. I try to show environmentally sound practices on my show. I try to live an environmentally conscious lifestyle. I'm not a nutty tree hugger. I mean, I drive a hot rod, or I'm about to. As far as emissions go, it's not exactly an emissions-friendly vehicle, but it's something I want to do. So I can't exactly label myself as a tree hugger, but I am environmentally conscious. And not just for myself, but for my kids and my grandkids, which I do have, by the way. I want them to have the best world that they can have. I think that's what any of us want. And if I knew that there was a way that I could help protect their environment, or help protect the environment for other future generations or whatever, and I could just do a few responsible things in the here and now, that's what I want to do. And I'm not going to sit here and say, global warming is not a myth, it's happening, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not doing that. Like I said, the Earth goes through climate cycles. But what I am saying, the Earth doesn't care whether we're here or not. We care whether we're here or not. So if we care whether we're here or not, I say we take an active role in trying to create a better environment for ourselves and everything else. Because think about it. Down the road, I don't think we'll be worried about gas so much as water. And as far as petroleum-based things, we talked about the motor law earlier, and the possibility of that coming to pass. Well, there's a lot of people employed by the petroleum companies on this planet, like thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people employed by that. If we suddenly stop producing oil and doing oil, and there's going to be a whole lot of people out of work without stuff to do. So they have a vested interest in perpetuating their business model. So here's the dilemma we're faced with as human beings. On one side, we've got to keep people busy and active. There's more of us coming into the workforce every day. We're living longer, all of this stuff. So there's more people on the planet consuming more of its resources. I think we have to responsibly manage those things and find a balance there somewhere. And I'm not saying, you know, give everything up now. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is be conscious. Be conscious of what you're doing and the effect on the world around you. There's your takeaway. Anyway, I hope I haven't talked your ear off for too much, but I wanted to make those points after that last video that just kind of scratched my head. Anyway, if you have automotive questions, please head over to air@thecarguide.com. Welcome video there to tell you about our features to help you with those automotive questions. If you wish to connect with me socially, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, also Instagram. Close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I'm looking forward to your comments on this one. There'll be a link in the description to a discussion. Thanks for watching. See you next time.